Blake in kindergarten or elementary was again an energetic kid. He was always catching the teacher's eye and getting into trouble and stuff like that. But he was always real smart. Always had a lot of friends. Really enjoyed life. Played sports. Middle school, when he got to middle school, he was one of the more popular kids in school and had tons and tons of friends. He had a group of about, probably 20 other boys that he ran around with on a regular basis. They were constantly out in the neighborhood doing things, and and that's where he discovered girls and really started hanging out with girls and I guess dating, if you want to call it that. He again played football. That's where he started playing football. He, as kind of a side story, was the third string running back on the football team, and on the very first game, he they couldn't get anything going with the first running back, and then they tried the second running back, couldn't get anything going, and they started handing Blake the ball, and he just started scoring touchdowns. I mean, he was just so fast that he was outrunning everybody, and it was funny because he would say that the only reason he was scoring so many touchdowns is he was scared of getting tackled. But he played football, he played basketball, but his interest, that's really where his interest turned away from school, so to speak, and he took more of an interest in being social, and being an athlete and that type of thing. Got his club soccer. He was playing club soccer at the time and was on a really good club soccer team. He got into then he went into high school, and that just sort of continued from there. Blake always had a little bit of a depression issue that he tried to hide from everybody, but I don't think Blake ever thought as highly of himself as he portrayed that he did. And I think he was always trying to be, on, so to speak. And I what I would say more than peer pressure is maybe even social media really pushed the limit on him. Blake, if we were to punish Blake, taking his phone away from him was like taking a needle away from a heroin addict. I mean, it was just brutal, the reaction that would get from him. So I feel like social media, while it's not 100% to blame, I think it was a cause, or it exacerbated the depression or the anxiety that he already had. So he had been prescribed ADD medication when he was young, but he didn't like taking it because he wouldn't eat. He wasn't gaining any weight, I mean, it just seemed, which is, I think, is a common theme for people that take that type of medication. But I do think that he paid attention better. I do think that he was more calm, and wasn't as, he wouldn't erupt with, a temper or anything like that. I think he was just more settled, but we didn't really like him taking it because of the side effects that it had. He and I and his brother went on a ski trip the week before Christmas in 21. Came home on the 23rd. He went out, met some friends of his that he hadn't seen in a week, and came home that night. And it's funny, or not funny, but we would always make him bring his keys home to us because we did not want him out driving. But he begged me to let him to go drop his friend off at UTD. Came home, gave me his keys. I went to sleep, and I got up at 4 in the morning and went in the living room, and he was laying on the couch, and his remote control for his video game was on his chest, and I just thought he had fallen asleep. And I turned the TV off and went over to him, and I just noticed that his chest wasn't moving up and down, and so I called his name and shook him, and no response. And so I called 911. 911 told me to put him on the floor, start giving him chest compressions, and eventually the police came, and then the ambulance and fire department and all that. They worked on him for probably, I don't even know how long, an hour, 2 hours, and they finally came and said, look, we've done everything we can, and he's deceased. And so I got to watch him wheel him out on a gurney. And so that was December 24th of 2021. So Christmas is not a great holiday for us anymore. I just miss his company. I miss his, he had a great sense of humor, a wit about him that was really funny. I don't even know if he was trying to be funny, but he was really funny. He was so much fun to be with. He really was. And that trip that we took to New Mexico for skiing that last week was, I still look back on it. It was just one of the greatest times of my life, just because he was there, his brother was there, and Blake was in a good state of mind. But he was just so pleasant, so easy to be with, and I just miss that. I miss the family that we had. Our family is definitely fractured. I know that's cliche, but it's true. There's always a little something missing in our family, and so I don't know if it's any one thing that I miss. I just miss just him. I'm gonna miss watching him become who he was gonna become too. I want to have that father-son relationship. I want to grow old and have kids and family, and or if not, just have adult conversations together. That's really the things that I'm going to miss with Blake. What I would tell him is that I think that it's okay to want to do things like drink and party and that type of thing. I think that's as old as time, and we've all done it, and my goodness, I would probably should be dead from all the stuff I did in high school and college, but it was much safer back then. But what I would tell them is that it's just too risky right now. It's just simply too risky to do anything that's not sealed up in a bottle or a can, or heavily regulated by the government. I hate to say, but it's just simply too risky to do anything that's manufactured by somebody you don't know. That's the point that I try to get across when I'm talking to people, is that I get it, I understand where you're coming from, and I wouldn't be the last guy to give somebody advice and tell them not to do anything. But what I would say is that it's right now, you just, you're playing Russian roulette with every time you take that chance. I think that what I would say is that it does get better. That what these kids, or what you're going to learn, is what you see on social media is completely fake. And I mean, it doesn't matter if you're 12 or you're 52 like I am. Social media can be very overwhelming. It can cause a lot of anxiety. I mean, I look at social media and I feel like everybody else has got a great life. Why is mine so bad? So I know when you're 12 or 15 or 18, 22, you think, man, I'm depressed that my life is not as good as everybody else's. But what I would say is that is all fake. Nobody's putting the bad stuff on Snapchat or whatever. And the other thing that I would say is that when you start peeling back the layers of the onions on any family, you're going to find that they all have very similar problems to the problems that you and your family have. And I've found that out when I started going through all this with Blake. I started finding out that my best friend, for my whole life, has had a son that was going through the same types of issues, and he died 9 months later. And this guy is very wealthy. He's got a very good business. And if you looked at him from the outside, you would say, man, that guy's got the world in the palm of his hands. He's no different than me, and he's no different than anybody else. And I think that's true if you look at just about any family outside of your own. You'll find they have their flaws. And the quicker you can realize that you're no different than anybody else, then the quicker you'll be able to get past it and start seeing life for what it really is. The other thing that I wish that I would tell people, if this does happen to you, it's not your fault. You're not the reason it happened. And what maybe doing the things differently probably still wouldn't have turned the situation any differently. But that's one of the hardest things that I go through, is just how can I be happy again? Because if I'm happy, then maybe I didn't really care, and so I struggle with that. And I think most people that are in this situation struggle with that.
Memories of these places, concealed until the